let's hustle, but let's hustle for meaning and purpose and collaboration, not just because we're all headed towards burnout.
I'm Amy Woodall, and this is The Conscious Habit, a show from the People Forward Network. We're teaching you how to incorporate love and consciousness at work, at home, and the world at large.
Hey, here we are. This is a first, Charlie. You get to be
Correct.
one of the first. Well, here's what's really cool about this experience. So this is our first Conscious Habit live podcast that we've done in the People Forward Network community. But Charlie was the second guest we ever had on the Conscious Habit podcast in 2022 when we launched the show. You were guest number 2, and it's still one of my favorite episodes. I just loved the you that you shared, and I'm so excited to have this conversation. You and I have had a few phone calls where we're like, dang, we should be recording this.
Exactly. Other people would benefit from what
Yeah.
we're talking about.
Yeah. So here we are. We get to record it live and, answer questions that the audience might have kind of at the end of our conversation. But it's really an unscripted conversation between Charlie and I. And when we talked about doing this, you brought the idea, Charlie, of being more of a mindful leader and learning how not to kind of make the hustle and grind culture your thing. And I just love to know, like, what's the inspiration, sister, like, we're going to geek out on both of our
Yeah.
experiences in
Yeah.
this. What is it in your own experience that feels like you're really called to share this message?
Wow. I mean, I would say it's my industry and my surroundings. So I work in the transportation, trucking, logistics, manufacturing, distribution industry. And I say it like that because it's a rough and tough industry and it is incredibly male dominated. And I think when I started in the industry, I shaped myself to fit in. I had that armor on. I was a little more like aggressive and assertive. And over the years, I've just realized like the power of authenticity and vulnerability. And I've really become my true self as a leader. Like I used to joke, I was like Jekyll and Hyde. I would be this person during the day and then a different person at night. But I've embraced my femininity, which is my softer side. And I feel like in my industry, it is so needed. It is a message that some people reject and roll their eyes, but other people come up to me and they're like, thank you for being a voice for what this industry has needed for so long. And it's just the human aspect. And it's let's hustle, but let's hustle for meaning and purpose and collaboration, not just because we're all headed towards burnout. So that's become a message I'm passionate about, both internally with my team and something I try and really model, but also externally with my clients. I'm a recruiter. So with the job seekers we represent and everyone we touch in our business. So I think it was an evolution.
And are you 10 years in your business? How long has it been since you started CS recruiting?
15.
Dang, the time flies. The
I
time flies.
know. And ages me.
And you're looking good, sister.
Thank you.
If you think back to like 15 years ago when Charlie started the business, could you have imagined now having a platform and a voice of sharing like what leadership means and this connection to people and this connection to self? Like, what is that evolution from Charlie 15 years ago when you put your like hung your shingle, if you will,
Sure.
the work that you're now doing in the stages that people are, bringing you on to share this really important message?
Never in my life would I have imagined that. So, I think I do a good amount of public speaking now. That was something I completely avoided and feared for the early part of my career. But again, like I came into this industry very, I don't want to say tactical because recruiting is not transactional, but I came in to do my job. There was a position that needed to be filled. I was really good at finding people, evaluating them so I could make that match. And I never really intended to start a business or grow a business. And I chased opportunity, which led me to scale. And I do think as I led that growth and added people to my team, that's when I got that awareness. Like, it's not just about me anymore. And that's where these messages and these, it's so much more about just hiring now. It's hiring the right people so they stay. And it's really about like retaining people so you can hire the right people and so you can retain the right people. And that's how my message is evolved. It's not just let us help you find the right warm body for your vacancy. It's let us help you really be strategic about your talents process and the way you go about finding talent, but also caring for that talent when they're your employees. So it's just gotten bigger than me. Like when it was just me, I could think my own things, do my own things. And as this business has gotten bigger than me, that's where I've adjusted. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't think this is what I would be doing, but
Mm.
it feels very natural.
Well, I think it's part of who you're hardwired to be, and also the work that you've just done, like the, personal work and leaned in and, have, I think, come to this realization like a lot of us do, which is like hustle and grind alone is really just to hit a result. And results are really empty if the experience isn't meaningful, if the experience isn't heartfelt, if it isn't impactful. And so that experience that I'm sure you've had has been this gift you get to share with your clients who, to your point, a warm body may get you the results, but it's temporary if
Exactly.
you're not getting to the root of it, which is the heart and the impact on your
Mhm.
people. When you're out there working with leaders, I'd like to think, and maybe it's because we live in a bubble, that like, oh, so many companies are evolved now. They're operating more consciously now. But I think that's simply the bubble that I'm surrounded by. What are I don't want to say mistakes, but what are kind of the blind spots that you still see with organizations that get too focused on hustle, grind, get shit done, that kind of like overly masculine part of our energy?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone is just missing the simple things. Like when companies are lacking in that department, it's not a reason for them to go out and find a huge budget and create this new program. And now all of a sudden become like a people first company. It's these little human things that add up. So, I mean, I'll share just like from some of the speaking I've done and the workshops I've done. I did one last year and I asked a room, I think it was probably 60 people, how many of you were acknowledged by your employer on your last work anniversary? And 60 people in the room and 3 people raised their hands.
Mm.
And the way they were acknowledged was very different. One person said, I'd been there 25 years. And so I joked and I said, well, then did you get your Rolex this year? And he's like, I got a plaque on my desk and no one even acknowledged it. It was just left on my desk and I found it that morning. One person said that they were acknowledged in a company wide email along with, 20 other people who had an anniversary that month. And then one woman, what really stuck out to me is she stood up and was so proud to share. She said, I work at a big company. My leadership team doesn't even know who I am, more or less know my anniversary. But when I walked in last month, it was my 10-year work anniversary, and my team decorated my cube and they got balloons and streamers and they left my favorite donut and coffee there with a card that everyone signed. And she's like, that's why I work at this company, because of things like that. And that's where it hit me is like, you don't send your employees a card or an email or a little shout out on LinkedIn. Like these are such a Slack channel mentioned, such little ways, and people deserve to be recognized. And I key in on anniversaries because it is a moment that we all share and it is a professional milestone. But everything like these little wins, closing an account, doing some really good work and just getting recognized for it. And that's what companies are missing. It's like a plaque on someone's desk feels like a checklist, like, oh, he's 25 years tomorrow. Let's make sure that plaque is there versus let's really step back and appreciate what this person has done for us and the loyalty that we've created in this, exchange. So that's what companies are missing. They think it's like, oh, we don't have time or money to create a program. It's not a program. It's like, just be human.
Yeah.
Congratulations. 25 years is a long time. You should be proud of it. Thanks for your service. So it's those little things that companies are missing in my eyes, just the little handwritten card, the high five, whatever it is, the thumbs up. That's what people need more of.
I love the phrase like to be seen is to be loved. And
Mhm.
just a small acknowledgement of seeing someone. I think we desire that. It doesn't go away just because we collect a paycheck. And I think we really forget that like the things we need in a relationship, a personal relationship, are very similar things we need in a work relationship. We need to be seen, acknowledged, and appreciated. And it doesn't have to be this big fanfare, like we throw a parade and there's all this pomp and circumstance. It could just be I paid enough attention to know that this is your favorite coffee, or that you love words of affirmation, or like I cared enough to know what is meaningful to you.
That's really what it's all about, is those little things. And I mean, that's something our company, I took it for granted because I actually borrowed this from one of our clients who did things right years and years ago. But when we have an anniversary, when we were in the office, we would all sign a card and leave it on the desk. And now we do this like an e-card, but it's printed out, it's put in the mail. And like, what a fun thing to get. Like, I open a card and I can see like every single person at my company wrote something about my work, acknowledging my anniversary. And like something like that, it's like it took everyone 12 seconds. It didn't cost a dime. No, sorry. It cost, what's the price of a stamp these days? 55 cents. Like that's what it costs. So it's those little things and people are amazed. They're like, "Oh my God, I never thought to do that." Like it's very simple.
Did you ever do it wrong as a leader? Did you ever like kind of miss the opportunity to acknowledge or see? Or I find that a lot of us, when we're called to teach, it's because we were the students, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
what's that experience been like for you?
Okay. Now I have to like go through my Rolodex of all the things I've done wrong because there's a lot of them. I'll tell a pretty impactful story of when I think back, and I pride myself as this, leader who knows her people, a leader who puts people first, a leader who really emphasizes that engagement and that, ability to see people. When I started my business, I was the only mom. So I had, younger employees that worked for me. At some point when we created our first handbook, we created a maternity leave, but there was no one anywhere near, having a maternity leave in the foreseeable future. But the years went on, and what happened was one of my tenured employees, she was maybe with us 5 years at this point, called in sick for a week. And of course, as the boss, I'm thinking like, oh, she's interviewing and leaving, or, doing something shady. She comes back in the office and I grabbed her. My intentions were like, oh, let me see what how she's feeling. Like I'm sure you're out like for the whole week. And we go in my office and she like instantly, her eyes well up with tears. And I said, how are you feeling? I heard you were out last week. And she said, well, I was out because I had a miscarriage and I didn't know what to do. So I called in sick. And that was like a moment for me where I was like, I missed that. And I have no excuse because I could say for years, yeah, no one's having a baby, but we have this maternity policy. But this specific girl, I was at her wedding. Like I knew she got engaged. I knew her next step was having a child. No, she wasn't pregnant yet, but I failed to even create a space where people could talk about that. And the reason it hit me so hard is because I struggled to get pregnant and I worked in a very corporate environment during that time in my life. And I kept it a secret and I snuck around and I would, come in late and say there was traffic, but I was really getting an ultrasound. And that is what really hit me, that I was like, yes, I can't predict the future, but how did I miss that? And how did we get to a point where I'm here prideful of having this open, safe culture where people can talk and share, but yet a very tenured employee still didn't know what to do and didn't feel comfortable asking in the moment. And what was amazing about that is like, yeah, I was hard on myself for not recognizing it, but I knew that that's not the way it should have been, especially with this employee. And the result of that is I think we've actually created 3 policies as a result of that situation and us taking a step back and realizing, our team needs a policy so they know that we are there to support them. You don't have to tell me anything you don't want to share, but you can call in and say, I am using my, I forget what we call it, but it's a pregnancy complication clause in our employee agreement. So you get time off for miscarriage, for any like fertility complications. We also have a separate policy for a loss of a pregnancy. We've created a paternity policy. And then the last thing that we created coming out of all this was a caretaker policy because we started to realize we're doing all these things now for new parents that have struggles. But what about all the people in our company that they have a sick mom or an elderly grandpa that they need to take care of or a special needs sister? So I share that story because that was a moment where priding myself on doing everything right, creating these open dialogues and spaces. And I missed something that would have changed my life if my employer would have caught it. And like, I just vowed to make it better. Like, I couldn't go back in time. I couldn't make her feel better for that week she was off, but moving forward, we made it better. And so I think that's a bigger story. I've made a lot of mistakes and a lot of little ones, but that's one where I really had to stop and evaluate what was important to me. And I think for me, it was just like slow down, look around, realize like employees need different things at different times. And that's what a leader has to be ahead of and be aware of. So, long story short.
No, so many lessons in that though, because even though you went in kind of being like, I'm going to see if I can find out, like, I'm going to see if I can, you still went in with curiosity, which opened the space for her to be honest with you, even though the intent wasn't there. But then I think the lesson that I'm sure if other people are listening to this are getting is like, oh my gosh, how many times have we gone into a situation sure that we know and we don't? And I think it's such a reminder for us to be conscious beings, not just conscious humans, of being like, I don't know what's happening in their life. And then the extra thing, kudos to you for being like, yes, work is important, but we don't want work to become a hurdle to these major life events, these events that impact you personally, and they will also impact you professionally. So good on you for getting all of the lessons. And there's a lot of times that stuff still goes over people's heads because they see it as one thing that happened in a vacuum and not this bigger thing that has the opportunity to repeat itself and have a need to really be looked at.
Exactly. And I mean, ironically, we have a team of almost all women. And so, like, these policies are even more important. I'll tell you, this year we have 18 employees at our team and we have 5 maternity leaves this year. So, like, that's the stage of life that the majority of my team is in. And yeah, there's a lot to think about when you really consider what someone goes through. And there's so many different stages of life. That is one example, but an example of how leaders just need to be aware. I'll tell you like another just quick anecdote. Like, I remember brainstorming with a leader and he's like, what else can I do for my team? And, he went away and came back and he's like, I've got a great perk I heard about. He's like, we're going to offer pet insurance. And I was like, well, that's awesome. But does your team have pets? Like that, the owner had a pet. It was great for him. But then when he really, he's like, oh, I guess no one else really cares about that. Like, you don't just add things to have a check mark on your, benefit policy. They really have to be intentional. And that's where the mindfulness comes in and just like the openness to have these conversations and be curious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Seeing them, right? Back to seeing them of like knowing what's important to them and making sure that people feel really understood and valued. So the last time we've had many conversations since you were on the podcast, but when you officially were on the podcast in 2022, I'm so curious, like what have been the big lessons for you in the last 3 years in continuing to be a mindful leader and wanting to step away from, what might feel like toxic hustle? What's been some big impactful lessons for you?
These last few years have been like hard isn't even a strong enough word to describe what these last couple of years have been. I think everyone has felt it, but in recruiting, it is very apparent. Just there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of budget freezes. There's holds on hiring. And also because of the industry I work in, the economy is not helping. Let's just say that if people aren't buying, companies aren't manufacturing, then they don't need talent to distribute and transport stuff. So what I've realized in the last couple of years, I think the biggest lesson is that I can continue to be the leader I want to be, empathetic, compassionate, human. I want to see people, but I also have to be a logical leader. And so for years, it was very easy for me to say people over profit. If I had to make a decision that let's say our whole team really needed new laptops and we wore them down to the last second, and we could either do, new laptops for the team or just make them keep working. And that's an example where it's like, what does the team need from us? And that's maybe a bad example, but this whole idea, I mean, we've adopted our whole culture DNA to accommodate the people on our team. And if I ever had to make that decision, I choose the people. In the last 2 years, it's hit me over the head. Like, you can't choose the people if there is no profit.
Mm.
And that has been a really hard emotional evolution for me because I still want to put people over profit. That is why I do what I do. And I want to inspire and change lives. But as a business owner, that's the hard reality is you have to lay down the law sometimes. And, if those people aren't working hard enough or there's other external variables that are preventing you from growing, it's got to be about profit. And it's been especially hard the last 2 years because I think everyone on our team has been working twice as hard for half as much. So how do I continue to push the focus on, revenue and productivity while being sensitive to burnout and unhappiness and a lack of engagement and connection because we're working so hard for half as much? So it's all connected, but it's been hard, and it actually put me into a burnout. Like 2 years ago, it just built up and built up. And it was really, I think, an emotional reaction to the way I was feeling as a leader and some of the like identity confusion I was having of like, how do I shift who I am as a leader? Because things need to get real right now. And there will be no people if I don't do this.
Yeah. I mean, there was this coming to terms with like, okay, but how did you stay in the also and, or did you feel like you were very much in an either or, like either we get very profit focused? What was that path for you?
That's a really good question. So what took me down really was the first time we ever had to make layoffs as a company, and that was in 2023. And we, eliminated people for performance before. People have resigned. Don't get me wrong. We've had turnover, but we've never had formal layoffs. And I think it was apparent that we had to do something dramatic and it would involve headcount in Q1 of 2023. And I just denied it. But I also knew, you know, we're going to get through this, and we just got to get this far till things get better, and we'll be back. And we have enough cash flow to support this team and to retain everyone's position. And I think when we made those layoffs, I took way too long. We ended up laying off in December. So I probably knew it had to happen in, let's say, February or March. And I just kept delaying it and having a lot of conversations and trying to avoid it. And when it finally needed to happen, this is what's hard is I know what our leadership team did to prioritize people in a really, really tough situation. The people who were affected may never know. They'll never have empathy for us. And I get that. And maybe one day there'll be a leader making a tough decision, but we did it with care. And that's all I can say is we were very thoughtful about the way we delivered the messages. We were thoughtful about the time of year. And I hated the fact that it was near the holidays, but we were able to, keep them as employees till the end of the year. So their severance would start the next year. And it was those little, like we could give a little extra severance. And it was the, help and support afterwards. Can we help you with your resume? Can we introduce you to people? Again, I don't think my team, the team members that were affected would be like, yeah, I got fired, but they did it in a really nice way. But for me to find peace as a leader and set that tone with my team and the people that were still part of my team, it helped me sleep at night. I don't know how else to say it. It was like, I knew I had to make a really hard decision. There was no way I wasn't going to hurt people or piss people off, but I did it in a way that I controlled what I could to make it as kind and beneficial and transparent as possible. And I think that's a really hard thing because someone's always going to get hurt.
Yeah. And I think that's like such an important lesson is like being a mindful leader who cares about people doesn't mean people are never negatively affected. It just means that when they are, It is more well thought out. It is done with a purpose. It isn't done flippantly. You're caring about the human's heart. And I think for all of us, like whenever we're making tough decisions, whether it's inside or outside of business, if we know we did the best we could on our side of the street, we have to kind of make peace with how it's received by someone else because we cannot control the way they choose to tell their story.
No.
We can only control whether we chose to own our part of the story. And if we did, and if we didn't make them the bad guy or point the finger, then it's like, I did my part. And I wish it could have been different, but dang, that's the hard part about owning a business is just knowing the tough decisions, yay, they fall on you.
And that is the hard part because as much as I empower my team and there's a lot of autonomy and I have layers below me that, have the authority to make the decisions. At the end of the day, it's me and there's no way around that. And I have to own it. And it's even tougher when you're trying to get out of the micro of the business and you're just getting to that point where you're able to really work on the business. And then something like this happens and you just get sucked right back in. And yeah, it's going to come back to me and you just have to be able to live with that, but it's hard.
Ladies, imagine taking time away to work on you. Meditation, yoga, transformational work, a chance to have grand adventures and build lasting relationships. Desiree Garcia and I founded High Vibe Tribe Retreats to create just that. And if you're curious about joining us on our next retreat, head over to highvibetriberetreat.com, link in the show notes.
How did you keep your, in those moments? Because you're already, I think, in this place of hustle and grind is kind of a joke. Not that it's not for purpose, but I just think hustle and grind can be very egoic, where it can be I need to prove I'm better and I'm willing to work harder than everybody else. And it's a bit like I mentioned, we're just looking for the result and the result is empty. And that's why high achievers get so burned out because they think their satisfaction and ultimate sigh of I made it exists in some outcome and it doesn't. So when you had to get there and you're oh, now we got to go back to this profit thing. How did you keep yourself in a place where you were able to do it mindfully and not get back into hustle and grind?
There was a bit of a changing point for me. And I don't think everyone experiences something like this, but so I made these layoffs right around the holidays. I hit burnout by the book where it's you just can't even, cross between burnout, depression, whatever you want to call it. It just really got to me. And it was right around the holidays. And I was with one of my friends and she's like, you have got to take care of yourself. You're waiting for someone to come in and rescue. And you built this and now this is for you. And she's like, you got to do something, go away, be with yourself. And it was December 21st or something. And we were home and no plans. And I went away to a cabin in Wisconsin and I brought my dog and I went for 3 days and I was there over Christmas, but it was the only time I could do it. And what I realized there, I didn't bring a phone. I didn't bring a computer. It was literally me, myself, and I and my dog. But what I realized there is I did a lot of things I journaled and I read books and I pulled tarot cards and I did all the woo stuff, Amy, that I know you love to do too.
Love it.
And I remember thinking gosh, I wish I could do this every day. And then I came home and I'm wait, I can. Who said I can't? And it's because in my mind, I write this narrative that I sit at my laptop and I go until it's dinner. But I make my schedule. I can say no. I can start my day with some journaling or tarot cards, or I could do it during lunch. And that is something that I've really been committed to in the last couple of years. And it's 10 minutes of my day, but I just go back to this, who told me I don't have time for this? And if I want to spend an hour doing it because I have an hour today, then I'll do it for an hour. But that was something to me where I think for a while I was playing kind of that victim leader. I don't have time to pull tarot cards. I don't have time to meditate. Do you know what my schedule looks like? And that was a big shift for me is if I don't do this for me, I'm going to stay in this bad cycle. And that's going to be a reflection to everyone who works with me.
Mm-hmm. It's so easy to have that self-judgment in many ways. And I think as women too, because we feel we kind of have to be for everybody. I got to be the perfect mom for my kids. I've got to be the perfect wife for my partner. I've got to be the perfect leader for my team. Oh, and by the way, I got to be a size 4 and I got to not have wrinkles and I got to get 140 grams of protein a day. Like it's so much shit that we are responsible for. And when the stakes get higher of responsibility, I do think it's so easy for us to abandon ourselves and feel like it's justified. And even as a leader, like there's times where we're like, I have to be in the office or I've got to be at my computer from 8 to 5 or as soon as I wake up. And it's like, where did that rule come from? And how is it serving me?
Mhm. And it came from a combination of like society and just that's how I was raised to work. Like I started working in an environment that was like work hard, play hard, and I made no money and I worked my butt off and I worked past midnight and that was a badge of honor. And I think that's just the way that our society, I mean, at least the way I was raised, a lot of the people I'm surrounded by, it's that badge of honor. And in our industry, it's kind of funny because hustle is what you do to be successful in logistics. And so there's a lot of social media content or, influencers in the industry that are like, they're posting, I was up at 4 a.m. I took a cold plunge. I then went to the gym and lifted 600 pounds. And like that's how you have to be successful. And then I'm over here and I'm like, wow, we have a 4-day work week. And I let my employees flex their hours because I know that they're going to work when they have the right energy and creativity. And it's just very different extremes. But yeah, I think that's what the world is. And I'm just I'm not conforming to it anymore, but I'm like going against it in a way, like the opposite. Like you can wake up at 8 and not take a cold plunge and still have a great day.
Yeah, there's so many paths to like what success looks like. And I think for you, as you started off, like being aligned with your own authenticity means being able to lean into the truth of what we need for that moment, not what we've been told we should be. And you know what? If it's the afternoon and you need a 20-minute cat nap and it's 2 p.m., take it and like listen to our energy. There is a combination of mindfulness that's important. There is a combination of mind over matter that's important. But I think why we're getting burned out so quickly is because we're missing the spirit and the soul of our humanity and listening to the soul of our humanity. And that's why we kind of feel like we're just going through the motions because that important part of us is not always injected in our work. So I just love that there are leaders like you out there that you're not only doing it with your team, but you're also, are able to have a platform and microphones to share the message.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I will say, I mean, I think something you're really good at in every conversation we've had is you remind me that this is all my narrative. And like, I know that, and I can tell other people that, but I think you're really good at just like taking that step back and being like, you are allowed to have that story. And I understand why you wrote that story, but is that really what's going on? Or how would someone else tell that story? So I think it's also, like shifting your perspective and having not only the maturity, but sometimes like someone poking you and reminding you that like, get out of your head a little because we tend to do that as well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, our stories can be powerful and our stories can keep us stuck in whatever emotion we feel like validates the experience, and I think we hold on to them for as long as we need them.
Yeah.
When we're ready to be like, okay, I'm ready to let this shit go and like forgive myself or move on or whatever.
Yeah.
That's when where, we can let it go and evolve into what it was meant to teach us all along. It's really like it is this cool path of just being a human who's growth minded, who is chosen to be growth minded, I should say. It's not that we're either born with it or not. It's like, it is something we lean into and the evolution of that growth for ourselves.
Yeah. And it's hard. It's hard to be that when it's the minority. There's no question. It's the minority in leadership. It's the minority in the workforce to realize that it's a cycle. And when you put yourself first or put people first, the output is actually better. And I think that's the business mind is like, let's look at the actual financials here or the bottom line of, a happy culture versus a toxic culture and what that does to a company's success. And I think that's what we miss because follow the lead and do what we've always done.
How does this follow you into home? Because you're the mom of 3 boys. Same, by the way. We're like, Charlie and I have so many things in common. It's like, oh, we've got the boys. My youngest just graduated. Your oldest just
Yep,
graduated. So
exactly.
congratulations on
Yeah.
that. So how does this mindset of kind of permission and caring and making tough decisions, how does that follow you into your home life?
Oh man, that's now you're going to get hard with the questions. Now this is the hard part. Moving into a remote environment in 2020 was a big shift for our family to see me working. And I think that was like, you don't realize how much of a mystery it is when your parents leave in the morning and come home at night and like, oh yeah, my mom helps people find jobs, but they don't really understand anything else. And so I think working from home has shown my kids like, they would say I hustle, but to them, hustle is my office doors closed
Mm.
or I'm having a conversation. So I think just like the work ethic is something that they've picked up on. But I also do think like it's almost like the vulnerability is probably the biggest lesson I have brought out of business to teach my sons. And it's just being vulnerable. And that's so hard. If we think it's hard as leaders, it is so hard as a teenage boy. And just trying to get my kids to tell me what's really up. And I feel like that alone is just like a new way of parenting because we are so overstimulated now. I also don't think we always know what triggered us with all the stimulation around us. So I would say just encouraging my kids to work hard but do it mindfully and to be vulnerable and just be that boy that is kind. That boy, like the boy from high school that like not necessarily popular, but they were nice to everyone. Like be that boy.
Mhm.
And it's gonna get you far in work and life. And that's hopefully what I model.
Yeah, it's good emotional intelligence for them, right? And I think that you've done the work to be a good internal communicator and probably had a lot of those natural skills, but have continued to amplify it. And that is like half the battle is us just being able to communicate well and kind of coach ourselves through the challenges and also rely on other people, have our safe space of people we can bring in
Yeah.
and to give them those gifts, at this age is so helpful because as I'm feeling now, I'm like, you have the panic as your kids are graduating, they're going to go off to college. Like, oh shit, did I cover all the bases? Did I?
Exactly.
Oh my god,
Exactly.
what did I not teach them that they're going to need to know now? And it's like now how we've parented will be put to the test with what happens next in life, and it's like exciting and terrifying. And
And like layer that on. Like I'm sure that's how our parents felt, but now layer that on with like, I don't even know what kind of jobs are going to be available for my 14-year-old when he graduates college. I don't know what technology is going to do for us. He may have a robot as a teacher in college. Like that's the craziest thing is like we are trying to also prepare our kids for a future that's unknown. And we're also parenting in a time that no one has ever, like, we're the pioneers right now, parenting in this very crazy connected world.
yeah, it is interesting. And even, I mean, I think back to like teams, right? Because have you had anybody on your team who's kind of afraid of like what AI might mean for their position and their role? And, it's also interconnected when you're the leader who's guiding. It's a little more intimate when it's the beings that have been in our bodies,
Yeah.
like shared space with us since they were babies. But are you seeing that play out in your organization or even in your clients' organizations?
Yes. I mean, I think I encourage a lot of like creativity and curiosity. So, like, even when ChatGPT came out, like, I remember telling my team about it and showing them like a screen share. And I was like, you guys got to see what this could do. And I like asked it to create a grocery list and 5 recipes for dinner for a family of 5, something just like so normal. And I just remember watching my team and they're like, can we use that? And it was like, I don't know what you can use it for, but if I was in your job, gosh, I'd be using it to do this and that and this and that. And there is a very clear divide. There are people on our team who are using it and they're efficient and they're freeing up their time. And then there are other people that just aren't adapting. And I don't know if it's because they just don't like change or they're scared they're going to get in trouble or, so I think everyone is in the same weird place with AI where like nobody really knows how it is going to fit into their work or industry or workflow or whatever. But we all know we need to get on the bandwagon or we'll get left behind. And so, yeah, I've definitely seen, I have a younger workforce. So they're usually like a little savvier than I am with, technology. But yeah, in our world, and I think you'll relate to this too, Amy. The whole idea is to eliminate administrative tasks, to create efficiencies for those mundane, repeat things we do all day, not so I can replace you, so I can free up your time and you can be more human.
Mm.
And in the world of recruiting, that means more connecting with people, more time, like really building relationships and being an advisor and giving advice and, building that trust with someone. That's what I think is the missing piece. People are like, ooh, if I get really good with optimizing AI, then they're not going to need me. In our world, we always will need judgments, creativity, emotion, you know, instinct, all these things that an AI bot is not going to bring us. So I think that's the way I'm trying to think of it is in some industries, yes, it will eliminate people, but let's think of it as making our jobs faster and a little bit easier so we can go back to what's important and still work 40 hours a week or whatever it is, just use your time differently and focus on connecting. So I don't know if that message is like understood yet, but it's also not proven yet. So time will tell.
It'll be interesting how it continues to evolve. We have very much been a time-based, productivity type environment. And I think it will continue to push the results oriented work environments, not just simply paying people for their time, but paying for their results and being able to amplify results. But I think AI will make knowledge a commodity, right? Like it's almost like it levels the playing field for knowledge. It doesn't matter what your socioeconomic background is, what degree you have or don't have, knowledge is going to be accessible to all. What it will not be able to replace, to your point, are the soft skills, the EQ, the emotional, the connection, the human aspect, the judgment, the instinct cannot be replaceable. And so the conversation you and I are having, I think, is even more important for people to be like, hey, you want to outlast the, effects of AI. It's coming. It's going to be integrated into every company at some point in time. How are you working on you being mindful? What are your practices for connection, to making human connections? What does that look like for people who are like, okay, I don't want to be so tactical only. I don't want to be so focused on results. What are some of the steps? Are there books to read, podcasts, people to hang out with? Like, where did they go to lean into being more mindful as a leader?
Years ago, I read Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty. And I feel like that I go back to that book and quotes in that book. And it was just, I'm not interested in moving somewhere and becoming a monk for a year, but it really framed my perspective. So I would say that was a very much like part of my journey into mindfulness. Figure out what works for you and like those little habits. Like I do meditate because it works for me, but it's been a journey to get it to work for me and to convince myself that I can do it, or I journal or whatnot. But that doesn't have to be, it could be reading the sports section of the paper with a hot cup of coffee for the first half hour of your day. Like, what does that look like for you to just get in your body and in your head and set those intentions for the day? I also just think connecting. I mean, one of the things I do as a leader, and it's hard sometimes. I talk to everyone on my team for 15 minutes a quarter about nothing work related. So I put these meetings on my calendar. Yesterday, I think I had 5 in a row, and I'm like looking at my schedule and I'm like, oh my God, why did I do this to myself? Like I knew I would be busy today, but I get on those calls and I'm like, this is the best part of my day. And I start them by just saying like, I don't want to talk about performance. I don't have your metrics in front of me. Like, how are you? What's going on in your life that you want to share? And if I know things about them, obviously, how was your bachelor party last weekend? How are you feeling? I know you're 34 weeks pregnant. Like those are the things that bring me back to being mindful, because now, Kyle isn't just my employee. He's my employee who's going through a really exciting time in his life leading up to his wedding. Or, Peggy isn't just my employee. She's an employee who we connect over both losing our dads young. And there's so much more to our relationship than just do your work and get it done. And so I think a lot of my unintentional mindfulness just comes from taking the time to connect and to be human and not intentionally using any of that information, just kind of storing it here and categorizing them as someone I care about. That, on Sunday night, I'm not texting to remind you that your draft is due at 9 a.m. I'm saying, hey, I thought of you this weekend. How was your bachelor party? Or, how's the baby doing? And so that for me is what mindfulness is just like giving myself, I don't want to say the fodder, but like creating these relationships in these spaces so I can think about these people as more than just what they do in our company. And that plays into processes and strategies and tough conversations and everything that a leader has to do.
Yeah. I mean, people may want to work hard for your mission, but they sure as hell don't want to work hard for your mission if you don't care about them. I mean, I think that's and I love that you schedule it. Please, leaders on here, we can all be so well intentioned, but if it is not on your calendar, then the reflection is you don't care that deeply because we schedule what we care about. Yeah. So put it on your calendar. So when you find yourself like you're hitting the point where you need a break because you've just like taken on too much, there's so much happening, maybe it's been a lot of travel or preparation or whatever, how do you find the time or give yourself permission to retreat? Because I think that's a thing a lot of people struggle with is like, we almost feel like busy equals important. So what does that process look like for you?
I'm not great at it. So it is a work in progress. And I am very much a person who either is incredibly distracted and can't focus on anything, or I will get into something and in this flow mode where, I could go 8 hours without drinking or going to the bathroom if I'm in my project. And so it's something that I'm just constantly working on. I had this one day that is like burned in my memory forever. And it was a year and a half ago. As you know, I gave a TED Talk last year. And so the process of writing the TED Talk is very cumbersome. You're like, there's all these guidelines of how to do it, their style, but also how to get the audience engaged. And there was a Sunday where I was not happy with where it was. And I had a draft due to one of the TED team members on Monday. And I sat in front of my computer on Sunday from like 6 a.m. till midnight.
Wow.
And like did nothing. And I stared at this Word document and I kept making changes. And then I'd go back and I'd be like, well, maybe if I research this, I'll get an idea. Maybe if I grab this book off my shelf, maybe. To this day, I go back because when I met with my TED coach the next day, I said, I don't even want to talk about this. Like I really wanted to get it better yesterday. And I was blocked. And she was like, you should have gotten up from your computer after 10 minutes of feeling blocked and walked away. And that was such an important lesson for me because I was like, oh, I can do that. And I sabotaged myself that day. Like I sat there and literally wanted to scream and felt useless. But like, why didn't I go on a walk? Why didn't I go fill my car up with gas? Like, because I was too busy to do that. But yet that was what I needed to reset. So I learned a really important lesson that day that like sometimes you think you're just in it, but if you're not making progress, like surrender to that and know that sometimes like a shower is going to give you all the ideas you need, or a day off, like just giving yourself permission to be like, today's not the day.
Yeah. We had a guest on the podcast too. And I think some people see this as radical, but they're like, give yourself 2 hours of white space every week, 1 day of white space every month, and 1 week of white space every quarter. And it is your gift to think. It is your gift to create, to problem solve. And I don't know about you, but like the busier I am, the less creative I am, the less innovative, the more things tend to stay stagnant and we're not really moving ideas forward because we're just in the keep up.
Yeah.
What an important lesson, a painful lesson. Sister, I can't believe you sat there from 6 a.m. to midnight. Oh. My goodness. But I bet you never do it again.
I like my family will go like, do you remember that day? That day you were like locked in your office and you were just, get out of here. But like, I wasn't making progress. It was just waiting for inspiration. So yeah, it's a hard lesson as a leader because the work is still due, but you have to trust yourself that there will be a better time to do it.
Well, I want to thank you for doing this live with us. Thank you to the folks who have jumped on and joined live. They're saying really great things. By the way, they're talking about how great of a storyteller you are. And I want to echo that back, that you do have a great way of not just experiencing things, but being able to see the deeper meaning within them and then sharing them out so that they're relatable for other people to learn from. So thank you for sharing that gift and those experiences with us. But I just so appreciate how you show up. Like, I love to be around people who are so themselves that it makes you feel more comfortable being yourself.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I am that person. Like I will say the cliche the wrong way and just laugh at myself and hopefully you'll laugh with me. So
Yeah.
that's a pleasure. I truly love this community. Everyone I've met has just been with open arms and in the same mindset, which for me is really hard to find. Like I am surrounded by these men in my industry. And then when I find people and I'm like, oh, those are my people, it's something I never really looked for until I realized I needed it. So that is what this community and, the different podcasts you guys put out, that's what that's done for me.
Yeah, it is so great to know, like, okay, there's so many other people out there who are on a similar mission, maybe in different ways, but really to make life more meaningful, work more meaningful, enjoy our journey. This life is short. Can we have some damn fun along the way? Like, we're
Yeah.
not but also serious. It's good to be surrounded by people who are on that same mission. So thank you, Charlie, so much.
Thank you, Amy. And thanks,
Ah.
Pierre.
Thanks for listening to the Conscious Habit Podcast. If you dug this episode, we'd love it if you would subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. And if you're into this consciousness thing, if you like this conversation and you want to meet more like-minded people, head on over to Facebook and join the Conscious Habit community. Until next time, do the world a favor and go love yourself.